Well, listen, thanks for coming out, of course, on this nice warm day. I'm here today to reflect the frustration of those in Northern Ontario and across the province who are being kept in the dark as to the causes of one of the most concerning, costly bridge failures in this province's history. We all recall the details. A $106 million bridge project failing January 10th, only 42 days after it opened, tearing up the brand new bridge deck on this vital trade conduit between East and West, and effectively splitting Canada in two. We also recall the Minister of Transportation in the aftermath pointing to bolt testing to be done by two separate independent facilities to find out what led to its failure. Well, it's now 7 months later. The National Research Council of Canada and Surface Science Western at Western University have completed their testing, and government has the results. But we, the people, are nowhere closer to finding out what's going on. In the weeks following the completion of tests at the beginning of this month, instead of releasing the results publicly and help quell speculation, both the Ministry of Transportation and Northern Development have been stonewalling public requests to have the information released. And while they indicate they're seeking further work to get the full picture, the continued delays, now going on 8 months, when they already have answers, only leads to further questions as to what government is hiding and further speculation over the lack of transparency this waiting game represents. That's why today I've issued a letter to the Premier demanding the test results on the bolts, as well as any internal NTO investigative reports integral to the January 10th Nipigon Bridge be publicized immediately now that testing and that internal investigation has been completed. It's been 7 months, and the silence from the minister has been deafening, leaving many still concerned with the safety of the bridge given the lack of understanding as to what actually went wrong. Simply put, if the bolts were or were not the cause, the public deserves to know. And if they were not, then government needs to come clean on its role in this regrettable, costly failure. Bottom line, the Wynne Liberals owe the people of Ontario an explanation. Continued stonewalling and lack of transparency only leads to more questions. Everything from what role did those bolts actually play, where was the government oversight, and what, in fact, is the government now hiding? And how we even ended up with this uniquely styled span bridge in the first place, when other more traditional and less costly options were, in fact, available. Again, it was well documented in January, the Nipigon Bridge represents an essential trade conduit that is relied upon for the transportation of $100 million worth of goods, vital transportation to local provincial economies that was placed in jeopardy in the days following the failure. Given the significance of the bridge, the fact that taxpayers are owed an explanation for rapid failure of a $106 million bridge rebuild, and a list of serious questions that have only grown in the months following the incident, it's incumbent on the Wynne Liberal government to suspend further efforts to stall in releasing the test information and report the findings as soon as possible. The continued delays only increase concerns over reasons for the delay and what they may be trying to hide this time. I'm calling on the Premier and her ministers to end the delay and the stonewalling and end the speculation and give the public the answers they deserve. Of course, the minister himself warned against speculation when he announced the testing in January. It's now July. The test results and the internal analysis and report are now complete. His ministry has had 7 months to assess what went wrong. If the minister wants to stop the speculation, he and the Premier have an opportunity to do so today. Otherwise, people will be left to wonder what is being hidden from them by a government whose track record on transparency only fuels further questions. With that, any questions?
Del Duca put out a thing already today saying that they expect the entire investigation will be completed in the fall, and that's the prudent time to release information once they know everything. You're not buying that?
Not knowing that, in fact, the bolts that were sent to both testing facilities are now complete, that analysis. But more importantly, we know that there was an internal MTO analysis of this. Report is likely complete, sitting on his desk. And so I'm not sure what more he's referring to when an entire analysis, when both the testing of the bolts are complete, as well as that internal MTO report has been finalized and is sitting there. So whether he doesn't like what's in the report, didn't have to go out and get another one, I'm not sure. But I think the people deserve an answer. Look, we all know that the Wynne Liberals don't have a great track record of transparency. You know what? Heck, they were deleting emails even before Hillary. So, you know, it's time that they come forward with it.
What is wrong, though, just to follow up, what the minister said, look, by September, I guess ostensibly, by the fall, they'll know, they'll have all the reports done. You think that the reports are done, they're just trying to put some spin on them, get the best way of putting them out there at this point?
I think that that's the only answer I can come up with as of right now. When the testing is complete with the bolts, you know what? And I think it's fair to say there's a lot of speculation that the bolts will come back. You know what? In fact, it wasn't the actual makeup of the bolt. It could be very much part of the construction process on ensuring that the bolts were actually tightened properly and secured properly. There could be questions on, you know what, inadequate. Design, and I think that he has those answers right before him, and whether, he's an out or another excuse and delaying this will only lead to that, but I think that report is important, it's been completed already, the testing's been complete, and, I think taxpayers, especially Northerners, deserve to know exactly what happened up there.
Context is always important, right? If you just release the results of the bolts, people can draw conclusions that might not necessarily be factual because not everything's pulled together. So do you think it's a case of, just inform the public all the way along and keep us up to date because we're owed that much? Or is the government just kind of on the ropes, afraid of what it might do for people to realize what the real problem was?
Well, I think it's more about protecting their own hides than, ensuring that the public has all the information. I mean, look, I think it's fair to say that there was some butting of heads between ministries, including Minister of Northern Development and Mines, as well as MTO. I think it's fair to say that very rarely does the first ministry get involved in bridge design. That's left up to the MTO. There could be some discrepancies initially as to, what that bridge should have looked like in the first place. Of course, it was leading up to an election years ago. $106 million, design of this structure. I think they were too far in to perhaps change the model. But look, that analysis, that internal analysis that's been done already by the MTO will likely shed exactly where the finger can be pointed. And that finger may only be turned back at them, and that's something that obviously the minister, will want to choose, the timing of when it's released, or in fact go out and get, a second opinion to see if it can be somehow blamed on someone else. But it's clear that there was lack of oversight that was done by the Ministry of Transportation here. It may not, in fact, be the bolts themselves. It could be a construction process of ensuring that the bolts were actually tightened properly that led to this failure. But I think it's important that he and the Premier release that information and the speculation.
What's the situation with the Nipigon Bridge right now? I mean, is it fully functional? Or?
Yeah, I mean, it's now back opened up, but I will tell you that I've spoke to locals up there that still have some hesitancy on crossing the bridge. We know it's a major economic conduit, in the province, and you know what? It's important that before we head into the winter, when we saw this incident occur, cold weather, that that we've identified what the problem was, and that we've gone about ensuring that there's remedies ahead of the winter weather, because it's likely that those same things will occur or potentially will occur this winter. So it's opened up, but I go back to the information. I spoke to local officials up in Nipigon, and they've been completely left in the dark. When local media has asked them about responding to a local press release that was sent out by the minister on the completion of the bolts, they weren't even aware of this. So it's important that not only this ministry and this minister is transparent with Ontarians, but also is keeping local officials in tune as to what's going on and next steps.
So would you drive your car over the?
Well, you know what? I love bridges, but I'd be, from what I know, I'm sure that they've taken the necessary precautions as of right now in the summer to drive over it. So yeah, I likely would, but maybe I'd have my fingers crossed when I was doing it. And I'm not trying to, spell any fear of folks because, it's a significant conduit, of course, and there's been a significant investment by Ontarians into that bridge. But I think that until we have that report and answers, people are going to have questions, and they may be nervous driving over it.
Have you asked why the old bridge was taken down as quickly as it was? I mean, wouldn't it have made sense to have left that one in place?
Yeah, and I'm not exactly sure, but I think that the old bridge had to come down to make way for the new one. I'm not exactly sure. It's perhaps the best asked of the ministry on that one in terms of the construction process as to why the old bridge had to come down. I think you go back and ask to why this specific design of bridge over other less costly bridges.
Was this a vanity project?
I think that's a good way to sum it up. I think that's a great way to label this particular project. We've heard that there were alternatives that were put forward. That in fact it was the Ministry of Northern Development and Mines that was insistent on this type of bridge. Perhaps some sort of legacy project or vanity project, as you may want to say, leading up to an election. It was crucial, I think, that there was politics definitely played into what was going to be built and the timing of it, especially leading up to an election.
So is this going to be like the Mike Gravel Bridge going, at some point?
I don't know if they have any plans to rename the bridge. You never know. I wouldn't put it past them, of course. But as of right now, we've got a $106 million bridge here in the province of Ontario that has had some serious flaws. And the government's sitting on not only test results of bolts, but an internal analysis of what actually happened, and they're refusing to provide it to Ontarians.